Welcome back to the Crypto World channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin just broke below key support in the short term and is now retesting the area that we need to pay attention to, as the Bitcoin price just exactly wiped out this level of liquidity in the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, as we now have new price targets to pay attention to, and the Bitcoin dominance is continuing another short-term pullback, which is good news for a lot of the altcoin market, as Ethereum is now ending the previous short-term bearish divergence, and the price of Chainlink is now starting to bounce from this crucial area on the price chart. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trending indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. And of course, we still have a possible bearish divergence forming right now, but we don't really have a lot of confirmation yet to actually confirm this new bearish divergence. So something to watch out for in case it confirms, but not currently confirmed, not yet in play. And on this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, we're still losing some bullish momentum, at least in the shorter term here. But overall, we've not confirmed any new bearish crossover or anything. So overall, the trend and momentum is still more bullish than bearish. It's just in the shorter term, we're losing a bit of bullish momentum. And on this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, technically speaking, for as long as the price is still holding above 110,000, this cup and handle pattern, a bullish price pattern with a bullish price target, is still currently active. It's still currently in play, unless, of course, we see a break back below 110,000 with candle closes back below that level. In that situation, that would invalidate this pattern and invalidate this price target. And so overall, on the larger timeframes, especially on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, it's very clear that we're still within a much larger bull market, as we could see, and potentially just in a shorter term cool off during the larger bull market, kind of like what we saw here or here, for example. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, it's still very much clear that the price is struggling a lot right around that 120k area. So really in between around 120,000 to 123,000, as I've been saying since before the price even got towards that level right there. I've been saying expect the price to struggle exactly around there on the price chart, which obviously has been playing out. And so ultimately, if we end up seeing some sort of bounce again back up towards this area, towards around 120,000, give or take, once again, expect a lot of resistance, a lot of struggle, and most likely rejections from that area. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin RSI, we're now starting to see the RSI roll over after briefly hitting overbought on the daily time frame just around 1 to 2 weeks ago. And the last time we saw this happen in the daily Bitcoin RSI was around mid to late May this year. And what came next was actually a bit more of a correction in the price of Bitcoin over the next few weeks. So potentially we're due to see a bit more of a short-term bearish trend during a larger bull market. Obviously, what we saw back here during around late May entering into June, that was not the end of the bull market or anything. Obviously, on the weekly time frame, that was a very minor bearish price action compared to the much larger bull market. But if we're zooming into a slightly smaller time frame, obviously it looks like a little bit more significant bearish price action, which means maybe over the next few days or weeks, it is possible we could see a little bit more bearish price action. So keep that in mind. This is a sign of weakness in the daily Bitcoin RSI, at least for the somewhat shorter term relative to the daily time frame. And if we're actually measuring out that previous pullback in the price of Bitcoin that we saw during the end of May entering into June, of course, from this high right here, roughly 112,000, to this low, that was around a 10% move towards the downside, or to this low right here that we saw later in June, that was around almost a 12% move towards the downside from the high to low. And if we're measuring from the current all-time high at roughly 123,000 to where we are as of recording this video, that's about a 5 to 6% move towards the downside from high to low, or to this lowest point, almost a 7% move towards the downside. So maybe we go a little bit lower, but I don't necessarily expect a major crash or anything. Maybe just a little bit more of a cool off, a slight little pullback in the coming days or possibly weeks could be a likely scenario. So just keep that in mind. But remember, zooming out, looking at the bigger picture on the weekly time frame, we're still within a larger bull market. And so as always, not financial advice, but let's just say if we were to retest some of these other levels on the price chart, at least in my situation, I'll be using that as a buying opportunity to actually accumulate some more Bitcoin. Once again, not financial advice, but that's just letting you know what I'll be doing if that were to actually play out. And if we're taking a look at the shorter term on the 4-hour time frame, we can see that over the last one day, we actually just confirmed candle closes, confirming a break below this short-term area of support here, which at least over the last week, give or take, has been providing a lot of support for the price of Bitcoin, and that was sitting in between around 116,000 to 117,000. And once again, over the last one day, we broke below that area with candle closes, and now we've come back up for a retest, retesting the previous support to possibly flip it into new resistance, but we're still currently in that test phase. And so if, for example, the price starts rejecting from this area now, actually confirming it as new resistance, if we fail to get back above around 117,000, then in the shorter term, that would be a signal pointing towards a short-term bearish trend. Now that we're starting to form some lower highs and lower lows in the price, that is obviously bearish price structure. That is a trend pointing in the bearish direction. And so this retest right here will be very important for the price of Bitcoin, at least when we're talking about what could happen over the next few days or most likely weeks. Once again, if we fail to get back above this area and start rejecting here, then honestly expect a little bit more of a correction, a short-term bearish trend, most likely for a couple of weeks, give or take, maybe back down towards roughly 112,000 as a key level on the price chart, around 110 to 112,000. But obviously, considering we're still in this test phase here, we've not properly actually confirmed a strong rejection, at least so far. Obviously, there's also the possibility that we just break back above 117,000. And if that can happen soon, that needs to happen soon in order to actually invalidate this break to the downside. Obviously, if that were to happen, then that would invalidate this break towards the downside and would simply just be back in this previous sideways price range, bouncing around between support and resistance. And so the current situation in the short term, as in talking about the next few days or weeks for the price of Bitcoin, is neutral at best, but most likely pointing towards the bearish direction. Not necessarily a major crash, but at least looking a little bit bearish here for the price of Bitcoin over the next maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Once again, there's the somewhat shorter term here, not the long term, but obviously that decides on if we actually break out back above this area or start rejecting from this area. This is what will tell us what could be likely is going to happen over the next couple of weeks or so. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see that over the last one day, the price of Bitcoin exactly took out the liquidity that I've been talking about over the last few days. Obviously, over the last few days, in my last few videos, I've been saying we have a lot of liquidity building at roughly 115,500, which is basically acting as a magnet. That's a price target for the price of Bitcoin at around 115,500 right here, which usually the price of Bitcoin tends to take out these levels of liquidity, which is obviously now just happened. And of course, in my last video, I said when the price was right around here, that it's likely we move towards that liquidity right there. But then I said in my last video, perhaps we actually bounce at this support before hitting that liquidity, considering previously over the last week, this has been important support for the price. But considering the fact that we just broke straight through that area of support, once again, that's another short-term bearish signal pointing towards potentially a little bit more short-term bearish price action to come as a likely scenario. And so if we're taking a look at other levels of liquidity to watch out for, we still have some liquidity building at around 120,000 to 121,000. But obviously, before we can hit those higher price targets there, we have, first of all, we need to break out above this area, but we also have a lot of resistance starting at around 120,000, in between 120,000 to 121,000. So obviously, we have a lot of important obstacles between the current price and that higher liquidity. But what we can also see right now on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map is, despite the fact that we just wiped out liquidity at around 115,500 right around here, we now have new liquidity building just below the price at around 114.3k to 114.6k, so roughly 114,500, basically right around here, just below the latest local low. And so considering the fact that this previous area of support here in between 116,000 to 117,000 could likely act as new resistance, and considering the fact that between the current price and that next area of liquidity to the downside at 114,000 or 114,500, considering that between the current price and that level, we don't really have a lot of important support, it is quite likely, it's much more likely that would hit that downside liquidity first compared to that upside liquidity. And so once again, at best, we'll just see a breakout back above 117,000 and then hold this area as new support again. And at best, in that situation, at least for the following days, would likely just remain in this sideways price range, which once again means at best, we're looking relatively neutral if we can very quickly get back above this area. But what is much more likely is that we're currently in a little bit more of a correction for the price of Bitcoin, cooling off after this major bullish move. And that cool off or correction could likely last for a couple of weeks, give or take, as a very likely likely scenario, kind of like what we saw back here, for example. But once again, zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, we're still within a much longer term, a much larger bull market. And so those are my exact expectations and predictions for the price of Bitcoin in the shorter term and the longer term. And of course, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And personally, I'm taking a lot of my crypto trades over on BTNX, so I'll make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading and deposit bonuses. For example, you can claim up to $40,000 in trading bonuses. And also, if you deposit just $1,000, you get a $200 bonus into your BitNex account. But you can only claim these major bonuses here if you use the link below this video to actually make your BitNex account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well get set up ready to go using that first link below this video to take advantage of these major trading and deposit bonuses here. And in case you're wondering, BitNex is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want BitNex as an exchange, there's also 2bit as another option out there, another exchange that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can also claim some massive trading and deposit bonuses. For example, you can claim up to $50,000 in trading bonuses here just by trading crypto using that link below this video to 2bit, and also a $30 sign up bonus and a 20% deposit rebate up to a max of 200 USDT. So for example, if you deposit just $1,000, you get a $200 bonus into your 2bit account. But once again, only if you use that link below this video. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, definitely check this out. First and second link below this video to these exchanges. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the 3-day time frame, and currently in the immediate short term, we're currently seeing a little bit more of a pullback right now after the latest short-term bounce in the Bitcoin dominance, which is telling us that at least for now, the bearish divergence is still currently active. And obviously, this is what I've been talking about over the last few days. We're simply just seeing a bit of a bounce in the immediate short term in the Bitcoin dominance on this 3-day time frame, due to the fact that, of course, we're running into this support right here and also bouncing from oversold in the 3-day RSI for the Bitcoin dominance. But overall, the bearish divergence has not been invalidated. We've not seen any invalidation signals confirm to invalidate the bearish divergence, which means ultimately it's still active, still influencing the Bitcoin dominance, which means we could potentially see another little pullback continue in the Bitcoin dominance after that short-term bounce. And in case you're new to all of this, essentially all you need to know when it comes to the Bitcoin dominance is if the Bitcoin dominance is bullish, then that's not very good for the altcoin market. It doesn't matter really either way for Bitcoin, but it's not good for altcoins if this is bullish, but it's very good for altcoins if this is bearish. And so you can notice that even just with this slight little pullback today in the Bitcoin dominance charts, obviously, despite Bitcoin having this breakdown in the short term, if we're looking at Ethereum, we're actually seeing a bit of a short-term bounce for Ethereum and also a lot of other altcoins as well, seeing a slight bounce in the short term while Bitcoin had that dump below support. But keep in mind, here on the 3-day Ethereum price chart, even though we're seeing a bit of a short-term bounce, we're still trading just underneath a crucial area of resistance, very significant resistance, where previously over the last well over a year now, since the beginning of 2024, we've seen many significant rejections from this area. And the area I'm talking about is starting at close to 3.9k, going towards around 4.1k. So basically roughly 4,000 and just either side of 4,000, we have a lot of resistance around there. And obviously the price pretty much exactly rejected from almost 3.9k, around 38.70 approximately, is pretty much right where we rejected from. And so ultimately continue to expect a lot of resistance, a lot of struggle in this area, and that could last for at least a number of weeks as a very likely scenario, considering once again this is on the 3-day time frame, so each one of these candles is 3 entire days. And if we're taking a look at the daily Ethereum price chart, once again in the immediate short term, we're experiencing a bit of a short term bounce from pretty much exactly 3.5k. And of course, I've been saying since before we just bounced from 3.5k, I've been saying expect a lot of support at around 3.5k. But if we were to see candle closes back below 3,500, in that situation, I would expect to move down towards roughly 3.2k to 3.3k as the next short-term area of support to watch out for if we first break below 3.5k, still acting as support. And it is worth mentioning that despite the fact that we're seeing a little bit more of a pullback in the Bitcoin dominance, which is helpful for altcoins like Ethereum, seeing a short-term bounce in the short term, of course, if Bitcoin, for example, continues a short-term bearish trend over the next couple of weeks or so, even if we see just a slight pullback in the Bitcoin dominance, it's likely that we would also see a bit of a cool-off period for Ethereum and a lot of the major altcoins. It's just simply we would not necessarily see as much of a pullback for Ethereum, let's just say, or a lot of other altcoins if the Bitcoin dominance is seeing a pullback as well. Basically, once again, Ethereum will likely hold up better than what Bitcoin is doing, but still maybe just cooling off a little bit, not seeing significant bullish price action, especially considering the fact we're still just underneath very significant resistance. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 2-hour Ethereum price chart, obviously over the last half a week, give or take, we've been playing out this short-term bearish divergence. We previously confirmed higher highs in the price in the candle closes and lower highs confirmed in the RSI. And so ultimately, once again, that was a bearish divergence in the short term, which played out over a few days or so in the form of just a short-term pullback and then a bit of choppy sideways price action. But we now have some clear invalidation signals to invalidate this bearish divergence, meaning it's already played out and is no longer playing out. We should no longer be relying on this bearish divergence any longer. And of course, I already said in my last video, we should not really be relying on the bearish divergence for too much longer, considering it's only one on the 2-hour time frame. But the invalidation signals I'm talking about is, first of all, a breakout above this line right here in the RSI, as we could just see here. And not only that, of course, we're starting to form higher lows and higher highs in the 2-hour Ethereum RSI, especially these higher lows here, which is an invalidation signal to invalidate the bearish divergence. This is a sign of strength, at least in the immediate short term. Once again, we don't necessarily have significant bullish momentum right now, but the price is starting to hold up a little bit after that previous short-term pullback. And so considering all of this information, considering the fact that this bearish divergence is no longer playing out, but also considering Ethereum is still underneath major resistance, and of course we're seeing a pullback in the price of Bitcoin, but also considering the pullback in the Bitcoin dominance, if we look at all of this information, tie it all together, ultimately Ethereum is still within a larger bull market here, but at least for the next few days or weeks, I do expect a bit more of a cool off, not necessarily a major crash or anything, but honestly, most likely some sideways price action, a bit of a sideways consolidation could be a very likely scenario in the coming days or possibly weeks. And once again, when it comes to resistance, I'll be paying attention to that area that I mentioned earlier. And as for support, we have a lot of support at roughly 3,500 and just above 3.5k right here, and also a lot more support at around 3.2k to 3.3k if we first break below around 3.5k. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 2-day time frame, we can see that Solana is still playing out a shorter term rejection from this important golden pocket area of resistance, still sitting in between roughly 191 to 199. So really in between around 190 to 200, we have a lot of resistance around there to pay attention to. And as for support, we're currently running into support at roughly $180. But if we break below 180, in that situation, we could likely see a little bit more of a short-term pullback down towards roughly 167 as the next key level of support. But remember, as I've been saying throughout the video, even if we see a little bit more of a short-term bearish trend or short-term pullback in the price over the next few days or possibly weeks, technically we can still remain within a much larger bullish trend. As we could see, we do have short-term bearish trends during a larger bullish trend, just like how during this previous significant bearish trend here, we did see decent pumps along the way towards the downside. And so that's the situation in the shorter term, still struggling around resistance, possibly playing out a little bit more of a pullback, but still within a much larger bullish trend, forming higher lows and higher highs. And if we're taking a look at the shorter term on the 2-hour Solana price chart, unlike the bearish divergence for Ethereum, we don't really have any strong invalidation signals to actually invalidate this bearish divergence on the 2-hour Solana price chart. And so considering the fact that this is technically still active, obviously just in the shorter term, either expect a little bit more short-term bearish price action, or maybe just a bit of choppy sideways price action. So neutral at best, bearish as a likely scenario, at least for the next day or so, maybe a little longer. But once again, that's the situation in the shorter term, showing signs of weakness, still rejecting from resistance, but still technically within a much larger bull market or larger bullish trend. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, we still have a significant bearish divergence forming, but not yet confirmed. So it's something to watch out for in case it ultimately confirms. And when it comes to significant support to watch out for, that's still sitting at around $3. And if the price of XRP were to actually make it up towards around $4.60 to $4.70, I'd expect a lot of resistance around there based on this Fibonacci extension level. And overall, technically speaking, we're still within a bull market. We've not actually confirmed a new bear market or anything like that. At least for now, we're still forming higher lows and higher highs, and we've not yet actually confirmed this new bearish divergence. So overall, in the much larger time frames, the price structure is technically still bullish, but in the shorter term, that could be a situation, at least for the next few days or weeks. And if we're taking a look at this daily time frame, as I already explained in my last video, we've already broken below this level on the price chart, which was at around $3.40, and in the short term, around $3.30 to $3.40 was some short-term support over the last 1 week or so. And so once again, as I already explained in my last video just yesterday, we've already now seen a breakdown, at least in the short-term price structure, breaking below a key level, failing to hold above that key breakout level right there, which means at least for the next few weeks, it's very unlikely would actually head back up towards all-time highs. Maybe at some point in the future, maybe in a month from now or many months from now, it's possible we could be sitting in new all-time highs, but at least for the next couple of weeks, it's very unlikely would head up towards all-time highs. And so once again, as I already said in my last video, what is a much more likely scenario over the next couple of weeks or so is for the price of XRP to remain in this range right here, in between this Fibonacci level and this previous all-time high. So in between around $2.90 to $3.40, as around $2.90 to $3 as major support and $3.30 to $3.40 as major resistance. Basically, the price remaining in that range, at least for the next couple of weeks, is a very likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, Chainlink is now actually starting to see a short-term bounce from this significant area on the price chart based on previous significant resistance, now acting as new support, and that's sitting in between around $17.50 to $18. And so for the bulls out there, for the Chainlink bulls, of course, this is very important to actually see. This is very good news that the price is actually holding this area and not breaking below this area, because if the price can actually start to bounce here, obviously that's another confirmation signal to help to confirm this larger breakout here. But obviously, if the rest of the crypto market is somewhat struggling and lacking bullish momentum, I'll not necessarily expect a massive bullish move for Chainlink, at least not straight away. So at least over the next 1 or 2 weeks or so, it's likely that we still somewhat struggle a little bit for Chainlink, maybe see a little bit more of a bounce here, but overall struggling to see a lot of bullish momentum. But if the price of Chainlink were to actually confirm candle closes on the daily time frame back below $17.50 to $18, so if we break below $17.50, in that situation, we could likely see a larger drop towards the downside over the following days or weeks, most likely back down towards roughly $15.50 as the next key price target or key level of support to watch out for. If we first break below $17.50, once again, expect around a $2 drop in the price as a likely scenario. But at least for now, we are holding above around $17.50 to $18, at least for now. And even if the price were to play out a little bit more of a bounce in the short term, of course, we have very significant resistance above the price to pay attention to, starting at roughly $20, but really in between $20 to $21 as very important resistance. And obviously, that is exactly where the price rejected from at the latest local high in the price of Chainlink. And so overall, continue to expect a lot of resistance in the exact areas of resistance that I've already been warning about since before we ran into those areas, and continue to expect a lot of support at these exact levels of support that I've already been saying since we've been hitting those levels. And if we're zooming into the shorter term on the 4-hour time frame, of course, we still technically have a short-term bearish divergence to watch out for, which has already played out very nicely over the last few days, but we are seeing some possible early signs to help to invalidate this bearish divergence, but still not enough confirmation to actually actually properly invalidate the bearish divergence. So once again, we're starting to possibly see the RSI flatten out a little bit, but if we see a little bit more of a bullish trend starting to form in the RSI like this on the 4-hour Chainlink price chart, then that'll be an invalidation signal and a sign of strength in the immediate short term for the price of Chainlink. Whilst considering we've not yet actually confirmed that invalidation signal, at least for now, this bearish divergence is still something to watch out for, which can influence the price in the short term, meaning we're most likely going to lack bullish momentum. Don't expect significant bullish momentum despite this latest little bounce from this crucial area on the price chart. But overall, with the current cool off and pullback in the crypto market just in the shorter term, maybe over the next couple of weeks or so, we could potentially see some major buying opportunities and trading opportunities. Not financial advice, but definitely make sure you're subscribed to this channel with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on any of the major opportunities which could be coming up over the next few days or weeks. And if you haven't already, definitely make sure you get set up ready to go on a crypto exchange using the links below this video to take advantage of those major bonuses in order to get set up ready to go to take the next trading opportunities. And once again, if you use those links below this video to those exchanges, you can get massive bonuses that you can only claim using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto no matter what the price is doing, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit during choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.